Hi everyone, thank you for joining us this morning. My name is Manjula Iyer, I'm the Director of Product Management at HIMSS. I'm here to talk to you today about computer-assisted coding or clinical auto-coding and how using big data and analytics can help improve efficiency and accuracy in the clinical coding process. So a little bit about HIMSS. We are a privately held company in Bellevue, Washington. We've been doing big data and analytics for about 7 years now, before the name was in the industry. We've built a very rock-solid platform that can ingest unstructured and structured data. So we have an infrastructure layer that can ingest unstructured and structured data. So things like medical ontologies, and electronic medical records of patients, and different other types of dictations and image data that we have that can be ingested as part of the platform. On top of the infrastructure layer, what we have is an intelligence layer that can discover unforeseen relationships in the data. The intelligence layer has different computer science algorithms, such as machine learning algorithms, inferencing, natural language processing toolkits, learning and feedback mechanisms that can operate on the data. And we also have an applications layer that helps you act on the data immediately. So I'm very happy to be here today at the Emdeon booth. At HIMSS, we recently announced a partnership with Emdeon, and I'm here to talk to you today about how X Patterns and HIMSS can help you with big data and analytics. So let's look at what the clinical auto-coding application that HIMSS has built, and how using X Patterns and clinical auto-coding can help you discover insights with your data. What are some of the benefits of using X Patterns clinical auto-coding? Well, the number one benefit that you have is accuracy. What we have are 3 different portals that we offer. We do inpatient, outpatient, and physician-based coding. So we have the ICD code sets, we have CPT, we have HCPCS. We've reverse engineered the rule books that are offered from CMS and AMA, and we've incorporated those as part of our rules engine. We also have machine learning algorithms that can look at historical records from your hospital or from your healthcare organization and learn patterns from your data. These 2 things combined together, the inferencing as well as the machine learning capabilities, will give you the most consistent and accurate codes for your unstructured text. We also have very sophisticated state-of-the-art natural language processing that we use that does concept extraction. So the moment we look at unstructured text in a data, we can extract things like diagnosis, procedures, allergies, symptoms, treatments, drugs, any concept that's related to clinical coding. We can extract that, normalize that using 2.7 million medical terms, various ontologies that we've extracted, things like UMLS, SNOMED CT, the LOINC taxonomy, the MESH taxonomy, the ICD taxonomy, all of which are ingested as part of our big data platform. So we produce the most accurate and consistent code for a given medical record. We can also increase coder productivity. So in using X Patterns CAC, you have an entire end-to-end workflow for a coding process. As I'll show you in the demo in a little bit, you can have the unstructured medical record. You have access to all of your rules. You have an area where you can look at comments and communicate with other coders. You have different types of analytics that you can see as to how other coders in your organization are productive. What is the amount of rework that you have to do on any encounter record. So we increase coder productivity. We strengthen compliance. So as you might already know, for those familiar with the clinical coding world, you have CCI edits and NCCI edits that are put out by Medicare, Medicaid, CMS. These rules change once every 3 months. We are a cloud-based system, so we can ensure that we are always up to date. The moment the CCI edits go into effect, October 1, January 1, 2013, they are in effect. Well, we have them in our system. You're compliant immediately. We are also backward compatible. We maintain our CCI edits for a year. So if you want to code encounters, in that are dated July of 2012, in February of 2013, you can do that. We're very cloud-based. We're very up-to-date with everything. We can strengthen compliance. We can strengthen, audit capabilities for you. As I'll again show you during the demo, we have audit capabilities within our portal. You can look at exactly what time a coder has access to system, what time they have entered a code, what is the code that they entered, why did they enter it, and so on and so forth. Finally, we produce very accurate results because we have a very strong workflow, we have good user management techniques, everything in our system is very configurable, so we can work with your IT departments and literally write up a text file, that is your configuration. We can get you going very quickly, very quick onboarding time. What can X-Pattern CAC do? So here are some of the benefits, but what can we do for you? Well, we can detect undercoding, we can detect overcoding. So because we have our rules ingested in place, you may have a situation wherein a patient is not allowed to have more than 10 blood tests in a day, otherwise the insurance company is not going to reimburse them for it. Well, we can have that rule in there and ensure that you're not overcoding when you're submitting a claim to an insurance company. That will make sure that you're not out of compliance when you're submitting a claim. We can detect undercoding. We document, for everything that is documented in the encounter, we produce clinical codes. So that way, if your coder or your staff members are missing any portion of your documentation, our algorithms, our engine will run through that documentation and make sure that they capture that for you. Any mistakes in coding, you may have violations of CCI edits when you're submitting a claim. You don't want that. So we make sure that we detect that for you. Finally, we also do, documentation checks. So we are helping with the transition, with the ICD-10 transition in 2014. It's really a documentation problem as well as a coding problem. There's a number of issues associated with it in the industry that we can absolutely help with. So without, further delay, I'd like to go into the demo here. So what you're going to now see is me open up a browser, which is really the computer-assisted coding application. And what I'm now going to do is log in as a clinical coder. Now, the moment I log in as a clinical coder, you're going to see my workflow or the list of encounters that I am working on. And this is then going to help with looking at what kind of work do I have. So here are the different specializations that I have, of specializations of encounters that are assigned to me. So I have encounters in the cardiovascular section, I have them in nephrology, I have them in obstetrics, general medicine, and there are, they are listed by specialty. I can also have encounters listed by status. So here are the number of encounters that are assigned to me. If I were to click on them, it would show me the encounters that would be assigned. I have some that are rejected by my administrator. I want to know why, what's going on with that. So let's look at, the first one. Now I want to look at, say I want to look at obstetrics. So I click on that. What it's now showing me on the next graph is what are my top DRGs. So I'm in the inpatient portal over here. It's showing me what DRGs are driving revenue for encounters that are in that particular specialty. So here you can see that I have two DRGs, 743 and 766, one of which is driving 77.3% of my revenue in that specialty. So let me go ahead and click on that because that's of interest to me. So I want to make sure that I can, that I complete those encounters and I send them to billing in a timely manner. So let me go ahead and click on one of the notes. I've got a patient here who's undergoing a hysterectomy. So the first thing that happens is that I am looking at what we call as an encounter metadata page. What the encounter metadata page is doing is ensuring that any data that's associated with the patient, things like an age, gender, what is the discharge status, what is the primary diagnosis, admission dates and discharge dates, etc., are stored correctly in the system. Additionally, what we also do is assign working DRGs for you. So as you might know, a DRG calculation or a grouper calculation is based on several different components. So we have age, gender, discharge status, what is the length of stay, what is the primary diagnosis. We are able to compute working DRGs. A patient doesn't necessarily have to be discharged in order for us to tell you what the estimated reimbursement is going to be. We can figure that out based on the information that we have about the patient right now and assign a working DRG. At any point in time, a health information manager will know what is the expected reimbursement given my current patient workload. Let's look at what else we have. As a coder, I can now look at what are the different notes. So here are the different notes associated with my patient. I have pre-operative notes, I have surgeries. We do duplicate detection. This saves the time for a coder. If there's a nurse that's written an operative note and the doctor that's written the same operative note, the coder does not have to go through all of this documentation to figure out whether, the notes are duplicates of one another and whether both of them need to be coded. We do the duplicate detection not just by text, but by concepts. So we are extracting medical concepts and figuring out whether there are two notes are, duplicates, near duplicates of one another. You have different other, other notes that we are populating in here. In an integrated environment, we can populate these messages via HL7 for you. If there is a feed that you want to offer us from your EMR, we can populate these workflows. If there's coders in your organization that specialize in a particular specialty, and if you want to tell us that, any encounter that we detect as being part of that specialty can come up in that coder's workflow. So we do offer that. So now let's look at the coding process itself. So I'm going to click on the pre-operative notes, and what you're seeing here is the unstructured text. That's the entire note itself. So this is the note. We now have, because this is an inpatient portal, we have ICD-9, Volume 1 and Volume 2 codes. So this is the ICD-9 diagnosis codes. We have ICD-10 diagnosis codes. And additionally, we also have the ICD-9 and 10 procedure codes. So now as a coder, I'm looking at what the system has coded for me. What I'm getting here is the code, the official description of the code, and what we call as a justification term. So as you can see, as I hover on the code and the justification term, it takes me to the area of the text that justifies why the system thinks that particular code should be there should be filed in the claim. As a coder, I can also, if I find that there is this particular section of the encounter that needs to be coded, I can go ahead and add it. So this is how easy it is for me to add it. I can, figure out, well, what is the area of the term that I want to add? So I want to add a diagnosis for this term. I select it. You see it appears right here. I can select it from different portions of the encounter, and they'll all come in. I can add codes if I know what code I'm looking for. If I have a description, I can go ahead and search for the code via description. Additionally, I can also search if I know the code itself. I can search for the code. And here I go ahead and I add it. So now this is something that, that the code in itself is getting added. But what else happens? What happens here is now, this is now sending a signal to our machine learning algorithms saying that here is a term. If you find this term in the context of all of these other terms and codes, please go ahead and use this particular code because that is a relevant code. So this is a system that gets better with time. As in when you use it, you're giving feedback, giving real-time feedback. You can also give feedback through batch audits, through historical records. And this is a system that learns and just gets better. So, here we have adding codes. Let's look at what other things we have to provide you. Here are the list of all the codes. Now, when you're submitting claims to an encounter, you want to know what notes you have coded. So here you see these little numbers over here. What they're telling you is, well, that's the code that has appeared in 2 notes. You click on the note, it's going to take you over to that note. And additionally, you can also reorder your codes over here. So you could go ahead and say, as a coder, make a judgment that there is some other code that is the most important code in your claim, and we'll make sure that we store that over for you and export it in a form that shows what your relevance of that code is. We have comments that help, coders and administrators communicate with one another. So you have, if there is a comment for an administrator that says, we need a particular record, or here is something, this is an encounter that's missing a note or missing a radiology report, we can go ahead and add that for you. One of the other important features is helping with audits. So you can see here that I have an audit of who has accessed the encounter. That's my username over there. It's showing you a timestamp, and it's also showing you every time I have read any portion of the encounter and updated any portion of the encounter right here. In case of an audit, what you could do is give your auditor read-only access to the system and have them look at it and figure out what portion of documents and text have been justified by codes. Additionally, if you have any coders that are getting a number of claims rejected by insurance companies, you can figure out why that is happening. What is the code that they are adding that is causing them to get a claim rejected from insurance companies? So this is something that we provide. We provide audit logs for every encounter that's in our system with a date and time stamp and a user ID, along with what action they have performed on the encounter. Additionally, we also have things like workflows. So once you can see here on the list of encounters, you have a number of statuses associated with an encounter. So you can call an encounter assigned, complete, approved. You can send it to billing. You can say you're ready with it. You can reject it in certain cases. So these are some of the things that a coder can do. Well, what are some of the things that other members in a healthcare organization can do if they were to use X-Pattern's CAC? So let me now log out of here and log in as an administrator of the system and show you what kind of benefits you can have if you were to use X-Pattern's CAC. Now when I log in as an administrator, I have access, read-only access to every encounter that coders have access to within my organization. So again, I have a large number of encounters here that are, you've seen this graph before, that are divided by specialty, that are looking at reimbursement codes. But let me also look at coder productivity. Well, who are my most productive coders? How many encounters do they complete a day? How many of their encounters get rejected? These are things that I can surface very quickly when I just look at this graph, which is updated in real time. I also have another tab that is very useful. I have a list of most used codes. What are my most used codes in every code book that are driving revenue? What is the percentage of encounters that is using these codes? I can drill down into those specific encounters and look at what I'm getting as a result of all that. So here are, you can use the system and you can drive different types of analytics with it. Any report that you want, just come tell us. We will have the data for it, and we will be able to get you that reporting dashboard, a customized dashboard for your organization very, very quickly. Let me now talk to you a little bit about the ICD-10 transition. As I'm sure most of you know over here, the ICD-10 transition is a clinical coding problem as well as a documentation problem. We do ICD-10 coding natively. We do not use the GEMS mapping. We do ICD-10 coding as if ICD-9 never existed. This gives us a very good edge over a lot of the other people that use GEMS mapping, because we want to say that when there is something that is present in the documentation, we want to be able to get to a precise ICD-10 code. Let me show you how we accomplish that. What I'm going to show you here is an example of procedural coding. Now, procedural coding systems is something that's only implemented in the United States. And since it's not gone in effect up until now, there is really no ground truth data that you have with which you can train engines. But we've reverse engineered the rule book, and I'm going to show you here a procedure that's talking about an arthrotomy. This is an explanation of the entire, here is the entire note that is talking about one single procedure. Now what we have here is an ICD-10 procedure, and you can see here in the little description there that we have identified every alphanumeric character on there back to the documentation. So the first character in that code is 0, which stands for medical and surgical, which comprises of about 62,000 of the 78,000 procedure codes. So if you have a body part, a body system, a device, a qualifier, or an approach that's missing as part of your documentation, we have the ability to tell you that it's undocumented. The undocumented in certain cases stands for a Z, but in other cases it could mean that it would produce not a precise code that would basically let you infer that the physician needs to add additional documentation in your encounter. So we have the ability to surface that very easily by not using GEMS mapping and by not looking at what the ICD-9 code would have been, but just by doing ICD-10 natively. So with that, I want to go back to my presentation and talk to you about how we can, deploy systems. What are some of the what are some of the things that we can offer for you? So as I said, ICD-10, X-Pattern CAC offers you, benefits to transition into ICD-10. But even with ICD-9 and CPT, there are several benefits that you can realize with just big data and analytics by using our system. We offer an entire end-to-end solution for clinical coding. So we offer documentation. There's encoder type documentation that you have. The computer assisted coding or the clinical auto coding piece of it. We offer compliance edits. We can ingest custom rules. If there are specific, provider payer rules that you have within your system, we have the ability to ingest that and enforce that as part of your coding process. We can also do billing reimbursements. As you saw, we can assign working DRGs, we can assign a final DRGs. With HL7 integration, if we know what the insurance information of a patient is, we can look at the hospital's charge master and also absorb that information and give you the exact, reimbursement based on the hospital, on the patient's insurance company. Implementing CAC. So what does it take to implement X-pattern CAC in a healthcare organization? Well, we are a rapid installation and configuration. We are entirely cloud-based. All of our web services, our cloud-based web services can be deployed individually or collectively. We have medical concept extraction available as a web service. There's inferencing, learning and feedback available as web services. There's compliance edits, there's billing and reimbursement, grouping that are also available individually as web services. You don't require any additional hardware in your healthcare organization in order to use X-pattern CAC. We are entirely cloud-based. You have a very low upfront overhead of hardware and software. There's no hardware and no software that's required. All you need is a browser. You have minimal IT support. As I said, we are compliant. Every 3 months, we update our systems. We ensure that you've got, the latest up-to-date rules. We've got code books that we maintain over a couple of years to ensure that you've got, ICD-9 codes from 2012 and 2013. We also follow best practices for HIPAA compliance, being healthcare IT software company. So with that, I'm happy to take any questions that you may have. I want to thank you for your time over here, and as I said, we've recently announced a partnership with Emdeon, and we're excited to see where this is going to go. And if there's any questions about CAC, I'm happy to take, or X patterns, I'm happy to take those questions now.